They said it was the happiest day Baiou village had seen in years. A young carpenter named Baiou was finally marrying the most beautiful woman anyone had ever laid eyes on, Nia. Her laughter sounded like the wind through hollow reeds, soft and sweet, but cold somehow. Cold enough to silence even the crickets. The entire village came to watch. Drums thundered, women danced, and old men raised their calabashes in joy. But the rain never stopped. Not a storm. Just a soft, endless drizzle, the kind that makes graves look freshly dug. And when the lightning struck the old fig tree by the river, the one no one dared to touch since the drowning years ago, some of the elders stopped dancing. They whispered a name, the same name as the bride's, Nia. But no one wanted to ruin the happiness. No one wanted to remember. Only Mama Tendo, the old midwife, noticed how the girl's reflection didn't move in the water bowl. How her shadow never fell right on the ground. She said nothing because sometimes truth itself is a curse. Later that night, when the wedding drums fell silent and the torches dimmed, a scream tore through the village. Baiou swore he saw his bride standing by the riverbank, her white gown floating, her eyes full of stars, and her smile far too still to belong to the living. They say love can bring someone back from the dead. But in Baiou, love only brings the dead back home. The rain had been falling for 3 days straight, yet the villagers said it was a blessing. They said it meant the ancestors were weeping with joy, washing the path clean for the new couple. But Mama Tendo knew better. Rain that doesn't end is not a blessing. It's a warning. In Baiou, the land remembered everything. Blood, laughter, betrayal, even the dead who tried to forget. That morning, the village square was alive with color. Red and gold ribbons fluttered between the mud huts, and the air smelled of roasted yam and palm wine. Children ran barefoot through puddles, chasing after the musicians who tuned their cracked drums beneath the baobab tree. Baiou stood near the edge of the crowd, his white robe spotless despite the rain. His hands were trembling, though not from the cold. He was young, barely 25. His eyes bright with a hope that made even the elders smile. He had built his own house from wood he cut himself, a small cabin on the path that led to the forest shrine. Everyone said it was too close to the river, but Baiou had always been stubborn. He said that's where the air was freshest, where Nia liked to walk and watch the fireflies. No one could blame him. When Nia first came to Baiou, even the birds went silent. She arrived at dusk 2 months ago, riding in a cart pulled by a donkey so old its bones showed through the skin. The trader who brought her said she was from the western hills. Quiet girl, polite, spoke little. She had nowhere to go, so Baiou's mother let her stay for the night. By morning, she was helping in the kitchen, humming a song no one recognized. That same week, Baiou began visiting the house more often. No one questioned it. Love comes quietly in small villages, in shared laughter, borrowed salt, and the sound of someone's voice in the rain. But with Nia there was something else. A stillness. She never seemed to blink enough. She never sneezed, never coughed, never seemed tired. When she smiled, her lips moved, but her eyes didn't. Mama Tendo noticed it first. The old midwife had delivered half the village, and she knew when something didn't breathe right. But when she mentioned it to Baiou's mother, the woman just laughed. She's shy, old woman. City girls are strange. Mama Tendo spat on the ground and walked away, muttering to herself. Not strange, lost. The wedding day arrived sooner than anyone expected. Baiou sold half his tools to buy the fabric for her gown, white silk that shimmered like fish scales. The tailor swore the cloth never stayed still. When he touched it, it felt warm like something breathing. But Baiou didn't care. He said love was worth more than superstition. And when he saw her step out of the hut in that gown, even the thunder paused. Nia walked as though floating. Her bare feet left no prints in the mud. The rain fell around her, not on her. Children giggled and pointed, thinking it was magic. The elders watched in silence, thinking of the drowned girl from 30 years ago, the one whose name they no longer spoke aloud. During the ceremony, the drummers played until their hands bled. The air was thick with smoke and perfume. The young men danced, and the women threw petals over the couple. But every time Ao looked into Nia's eyes, he saw the river, still, deep, endless. And when the priest told her to take his hand, her fingers were cold as metal. She didn't flinch when he placed the ring on her. She didn't even breathe when the crowd cheered. Some said they saw her reflection in the mirror behind her move half a second too late. Others said the mirror cracked at that exact moment, just a hairline split running down the middle, like a warning the world couldn't keep to itself. By nightfall, the celebration spilled into the streets. Palm wine flowed, and songs rose into the dark like smoke from an unseen fire. Ao's friends lifted him on their shoulders, shouting, "Our carpenter has carved his heart into love." He laughed and looked for Nia. She was standing alone near the edge of the square, her gown almost glowing under the storm lanterns. When he reached her, she smiled faintly. "Are you happy, my love?" she asked. He kissed her hand. "More than I have ever been." "Then don't ever stop smiling," she whispered. "Because sometimes joy is all that keeps the dead asleep." He laughed softly, not understanding. She smiled again, but her eyes flicked toward the forest, where shadows moved like people and whispers rose with the wind. That night they moved into the new house. A single lantern burned on the table, throwing gold light across the room. The walls creaked softly, and outside, frogs sang in the flooded fields. Nia walked slowly through the home, touching each wall like she was remembering it from long ago. Ao stood behind her, watching, his heart full. But when he embraced her, she didn't feel real. Her body was cold. Her pulse was faint. He pulled back, confused. She looked at him and said gently, "It takes time for love to warm me." He nodded, pretending to understand. Later, when she thought he was asleep, she stood by the window for hours, staring into the night. Her reflection in the glass didn't move. And when the lantern went out, her face stayed visible, faintly glowing as if moonlight lived inside her. The next morning, the village dogs barked until sunrise. Goats refused to graze near the house. Mama Tendo came with a basket of herbs, saying it was a gift for the new couple. When Nia opened the door, the old woman froze. Her pupils were pale, almost white. Her smile too perfect. "Child," Mama Tendo said carefully, "have you slept well?" Nia tilted her head. "I don't sleep. I dream while standing." And before the old woman could reply, Nia shut the door, so softly that the wind itself seemed to stop. Mama Tendo dropped the basket and walked away trembling. The herbs spilled into the mud, hissing as if touched by heat. That night she went to Chief Okoro. She said, "The drowned one has come back. The river's bride has found her husband." The chief's face turned gray. He whispered, "Then the curse wasn't broken after all." Chief Okoro sat alone that night, staring into the dying fire. Outside, the rain whispered against the thatched roof, soft but endless. He hadn't heard that name, Nia, spoken aloud in 30 years. Not since the night they found her white veil floating on the river like a piece of cloud fallen from the sky. Back then, the villagers said it was love that killed her. Others said it was shame. But the old priest of the forest shrine had said something different. The girl's spirit won't rest until her wedding is complete. Koro had laughed then. But now, as the thunder rolled across the valley and the same name returned to his ears, he felt his bones remember what his mind tried to forget. He poured a cup of palm wine and muttered, "Ancestors, forgive me. The river has come for what was promised." That same night, in the little wooden house near the forest, Ao woke to the sound of humming. It was soft, almost like a lullaby, floating from the doorway. He turned his head. Nia wasn't beside him. The door was open. The rain shimmered like silver threads beyond it. He stood heart-pounding and stepped outside. There she was, standing at the edge of the clearing, her white gown glowing faintly under the stormy moon. Her hair clung to her face, her bare feet sunk slightly into the mud, but somehow she wasn't wet. "Nia," he whispered. "What are you doing out here?" She turned slowly, her eyes dark and far away. "The river is calling," she said softly. "It remembers." Oh frowned. "What river?" But before she could answer, a gust of wind howled through the trees, and for a moment, he saw shapes moving behind her. Pale faces, half buried in rain and fog, watching. Then everything went still. When he blinked, Nia was already walking back toward the house, silent as a shadow. The next morning, Ao told himself it was a dream. But the mud on the doorstep said otherwise. He followed the footprints. They led halfway to the forest and stopped abruptly, as if she had vanished into the air. He returned home trembling. Nia was in the kitchen, grinding herbs in a wooden bowl. She looked up at him and smiled faintly. "You shouldn't follow me," she said. "The river doesn't like strangers." Ao's throat tightened. "How did you know I?" She pressed a finger to his lips. "Don't ask questions that the wind can answer. It makes it jealous." Then she went back to her work, her fingers moving slowly, rhythmically. The smell of crushed herbs filled the air, sweet at first, then bitter, then metallic. Ao felt dizzy. He sat down and put his head in his hands. When he looked up again, she was gone. That evening, Mama Tendo came back, ignoring the rain that soaked her shawl. She carried a small gourd filled with ashes and wrapped in palm leaves. When Ao opened the door, she didn't greet him. She simply looked past him into the house. "She's inside." "Yes," Ao said uneasily. "Why?" The old woman stepped in, her eyes scanning the shadows. She placed the gourd on the floor and whispered a prayer. Then she turned to him and said, "Listen carefully, Ao. The river doesn't return what it takes, unless something of equal weight is given in exchange." Ao frowned. "You're speaking in riddles, Mama." "I speak in truth," she hissed. "That girl is not your wife. She's what's left of a promise broken before you were born." Ao stepped back, shaking his head. "No, she's alive. I've touched her, spoken to her." "Then tell me," Mama Tendo interrupted. "When she breathes, does her chest move? When she sleeps, does she dream?" He froze. He wanted to answer, but his mind couldn't find the memory. He had never seen her sleep, never seen her take a breath. Mama Tendo leaned closer, her voice trembling. "The dead are clever when they want to feel loved." Outside, thunder cracked like a whip. The wind rushed through the forest, carrying with it a faint sound, laughter high and childlike, echoing from the direction of the river. Nia appeared in the doorway, her gown spotless despite the rain. "Mama Tendo," she said gently, "you shouldn't walk so far in this weather. The paths are slippery." The old woman turned, her jaw tight. "I've walked harder roads than this, ghost child." Ao's eyes widened. "Mama," he hissed. But Nia only smiled. "Ghost. Oh Mama, I'm a bride. You came to bless our home, didn't you?" She took a slow step forward. The firelight flickered across her face, and for the briefest moment, the skin on her cheek turned translucent. Beneath it, something moved. Water, swirling faintly like a reflection trapped inside flesh. Mama Tendo whispered a prayer under her breath and reached for the gourd. But before she could open it, Nia spoke again, her voice now deeper, echoing like two people speaking at once. "You can't bless what the river has already claimed." The candle on the table went out. The room plunged into darkness. Ao heard the gourd fall and shatter. He smelled ash and blood. When the lanterns were lit again, Mama Tendo was gone. The door was open. Rain blew in like a living thing. Nia stood motionless, staring out into the storm. She went to the river, she said softly. They always do. By morning, the villagers found Mama Tendo's shawl tangled in the reeds downstream. Her body was never recovered. Ao shut himself inside the house for 2 days. He didn't eat, didn't speak, didn't even look at Nia. She moved around him silently, humming that same haunting tune, the one he had first heard when she arrived months ago. When he finally spoke, his voice was hoarse. "What are you, Nia?" She smiled gently. "I'm yours." "No," he said, stepping back. "You're something else. You're." She touched his face, and her hand was ice. "Don't finish that sentence," she whispered. "Words have weight, my love. Speak carelessly, and you might sink beneath them." He stared at her, at the faint shimmer on her skin, at the way her pupils seemed to ripple like water. "I loved you," he said softly. "And you still do," she replied. "That's what keeps me here." That night, he dreamed of the river. He saw her standing in it, waist-deep, her wedding gown spreading like a cloud on the surface. She looked at him, smiling, then reached out her hand. When he took it, he felt the cold of death, but also a strange peace. Then he woke to the sound of dripping water. The roof wasn't leaking, yet droplets fell one by one onto his chest. He looked up. Nia was leaning over him, her eyes glowing faintly. "Don't be afraid," she whispered. "Love doesn't end. It only changes shape." And when she smiled, her teeth reflected the moonlight like broken shells. They said a woman's laughter could bless a home. But in Ekuma village, after Nia arrived, laughter became something people feared. It began with little things. Children woke screaming in the night, saying they heard someone humming outside their windows, a soft, wedding tune carried by the wind. Ao brushed it off as nerves. "The village just needs time," he told her gently. But when he turned away, he saw her reflection in the mirror behind him, still smiling long after her face had gone still. He didn't say a word. By the 3rd night, every animal in the compound refused to go near her. Goats bleated until their throats cracked, dogs barked into the air, and even the chickens hid beneath the hut steps. Still Nia laughed it off. Her laughter, that strange melodic sound, echoed too long in the air, almost like the walls themselves were laughing with her. One evening, while Ao fetched water from the river, he saw something beneath the surface. The moonlight revealed it, the pale shimmer of a bridal veil floating against the current. He reached down to grab it, but the water turned black around his hand, and a second hand rose from beneath, gripping his wrist tightly. He screamed, but when he looked again there was nothing. Only ripples and his reflection staring back, eyes wide, breath shaking. When he returned home, he found Nia already asleep. Her hands folded neatly over her chest, her skin cold. But when he leaned closer, her eyes snapped open and she whispered, "Why did you leave me by the river?" Ao stumbled back. He had never told anyone where he first found her body that night before the wedding. Not even his mother. The village grew quiet after sundown. Doors stayed locked, fires burned low, and even the elders avoided the path near Ao's compound. They whispered she was not a woman at all. But something returned. Old Mama Abani, the blind seer, called for Ao one night. Her hut smelled of herbs and smoke, her eyes clouded like moonstone. She said, "The laughter you hear is not joy, my son. It is hunger." Ao wanted to protest, but the old woman reached out and touched his face. Her hands trembled. "You took her from the water. That river never lets go. You should have burned what it gave back." Ao froze. Burned. He couldn't bring himself to destroy the woman he loved, the one who smiled like sunlight after rain. That night, he awoke to the sound of humming, the same wedding song drifting from outside. He crept toward the door, heart hammering, and saw her, Nia, standing in the yard under the moonlight, wearing her torn wedding dress. The fabric shimmered wetly, though no rain had fallen. She was dancing slowly, barefoot in the dust. Every turn of her body left faint footprints glowing faint blue, as if the ground itself remembered her death. Then she turned, her face half shadow, half smile. And she said softly, "Ao, will you dance with me?" He wanted to run, but her eyes, her eyes, held him there. He stepped forward, trembling, his hand finding hers. Her touch was cold as stone. They danced in silence. With each turn, the music grew louder, though no one was playing. And behind the sound of drums, faint laughter rose, dozens of voices joining hers, echoing from the darkness. By morning, Ao was found collapsed outside the compound. He couldn't remember when the dance ended. All he could recall was her face, smiling, as her skin began to peel away, revealing the blackened river beneath. Word spread fast. The healer refused to visit. The priest would not bless the union again. Even Ao's own mother stopped speaking his name aloud. "Whatever came back in that dress," she said, "isn't the same girl you buried." But Ao couldn't accept it. He couldn't let go of her, not again. He searched the old archives, asked wandering shamans, begged the spirits in the forest for answers. Finally, one traveler told him of a forgotten ritual, the rite of separation. It could release a trapped soul, or doom the one who loved it most. Desperate, Ao prepared it. He built a small altar by the riverbank, using Nia's veil, her wedding ring, and the soil from her grave. As he lit the final candle, a cold wind blew. The flame bent sideways, as if something breathed against it. Then he heard her voice, clear and near. "You think you can send me away?" He turned, and there she was, standing inches behind him. Her eyes hollow, her face streaked with tears that were not tears but black water. She stepped closer, whispering, "I waited for you beneath the river. I watched you marry my shadow." The candles blew out. When the villagers found the altar the next day, it was overturned, the soil scattered. Only one thing remained, Nia's veil, soaked through and through. They searched for Ao for days. Some said they heard his voice near the river, whispering her name. Others swore they saw two figures walking hand in hand along the water at dusk, the bride and her groom, faces pale and smiles wide, heading toward the place where the river bends. But no one ever found their bodies. Then the laughter returned. It started faintly, a woman's giggle echoing through the palm trees. Then came another and another, until the whole village could hear it, every night from the river's edge. Soft, haunting, eternal. Some nights, people still see her veil floating along the current, glowing faintly under the moon. And those who dare to follow it say they find footprints leading from the water to the forest. And the smell of wedding flowers that never fade. Because Nia, the bride who drowned, never left. She still dances, still laughs, and she still waits for her groom to join her. Again. They say the dead should be left in peace. But when love is stronger than death, peace becomes impossible. For 3 days, the river refused to sleep. Its waters churned beneath a blood-red sky, as though the earth itself knew what was coming. The villagers had sealed their homes with ash and prayer marks, but it changed nothing. The laughter had returned, no longer soft or distant. Now it came from everywhere. From the trees, the wells, even the cracks in the walls. And in that laughter was a name. Oh. He wandered through the village like a man already dead. Eyes hollow, voice gone, feet dragging through the dust. He no longer heard the elder's warnings or his mother's tears. He only heard her. Nia's voice followed him everywhere. In his dreams, she whispered his name. In his waking hours, she sang the wedding song that now felt like a curse. He had loved her once. Now he couldn't remember why. That night, the river called again. Ao stood at its edge, the air thick and humming. The moon hung low, a broken coin in a bruised sky. And from the mist that rolled across the water she appeared. Nia. Still wearing the same soaked wedding dress, its lace now torn and glistening like scales. Her hair floated around her as though she stood underwater. Her eyes glowed faintly blue, and her lips curved into that same haunting smile. "You built an altar for me," she said softly. "But you never said goodbye." Ao's voice cracked. "What are you?" "I'm what you made me." Her tone was neither anger nor sorrow. It was simply truth. "When you pulled me from the river, you pulled only the body. My soul stayed behind. And when you dressed me as a bride, you married a corpse." Her laughter sliced through the night. Trees bent. The river turned black. Ao stumbled back, shaking. "I wanted to save you." "You wanted to save yourself," she hissed. "You couldn't bear the thought of being alone. So you took what didn't belong to life anymore." She stepped forward, her feet leaving no prints, only puddles that reflected her face in each drop. "I tried to love you again, Ao. But the dead can't love. They can only remember." Her hand reached out, brushing his cheek. Where her skin touched his, frost bloomed. And as she smiled, he saw the truth behind her face. Beneath her beauty, the waterlogged skull of the thing she'd become. From the forest came the drums. Low, rhythmic, ancient, the call of the river spirits. The villagers gathered from afar, unable to look away. Even from miles, they could see the two figures by the riverbank, bride and groom, locked in a moment between love and damnation. Ao fell to his knees. "Tell me how to end this." Nia knelt beside him, her veil trailing into the current. Her voice softened. "You end it by joining me." He stared into her eyes, the same eyes that once laughed, once dreamed. And he understood. The curse was not born of vengeance. It was born of longing, a love that refused to decay. He took her hand. The cold surged through him like knives, but he didn't let go. She smiled. "Then dance with me, my love, one last time." The river began to glow, not with moonlight but from within. As they danced, the ground trembled. Water rose around them, swirling like mist made of glass. And as their bodies turned, Ao saw the faces of the forgotten, the drowned, the lost, the ones the river had claimed over centuries. They watched in silence, their hollow eyes shimmering like stars. Nia's laughter echoed above them all, now pure and sorrowful. "You should have let me rest, Ao. But now you must rest with me." Her arms wrapped around him. The river erupted. A wave of light swallowed the bank. The villagers screamed and fled, but the sound was lost under the roar of rushing water. When the current calmed, the river was still again, perfectly still. The moon reflected clearly. And where Ao had stood, there was only the veil, floating, slowly sinking. By dawn the curse had spread. The village well turned murky, the fish floated belly up in the stream, and no one dared speak her name. But some swore that if you listened closely to the water, you could hear laughter bubbling beneath the surface. The elders declared the place forbidden. They built a new path far from the river, and no one crossed it again. Years passed. Grass grew over the graves, the stories turned to whispers, and the memory of Ao and Nia faded, as memories do. But the river never forgot. On certain nights, when the moon is full and the air is too still, travelers passing near Akuma claim to see two figures standing in the mist. The bride, pale as moonlight, and the man beside her, holding her hand. They say she still wears the veil. And when she laughs, the trees tremble. One hunter who dared to look too long said her eyes were not sad. They were proud, as though she had won something, as though love itself had outlived death. And at the place where they vanished, carved into an old stone by the river, the villagers found words they swear were not there before. "Till the river runs dry, I will wait." The stone dripped with water that never dried. Some say Ao was cursed. Others say he was blessed, for finding a love strong enough to break the line between worlds. But no one really knows what happened that night. Only that the river still laughs. And the laughter sounds like a wedding song. In time, the river grew quiet again. The villagers rebuilt, children were born, and life went on, as it always does after tragedy. But whenever they fetched water, they bowed their heads, whispering a prayer for those who loved too deeply. Old Mama Abony would sit by her fire at night and tell the young ones, "Never chase what the river has claimed. Some things belong to the water, and some loves are not meant for the living." No one argued with her, because sometimes just before dawn they'd still hear it, the soft hum of a woman's voice carried through the mist. And if they listened too long, they'd swear they saw two figures standing by the riverbank, hand in hand, smiling. Maybe Ao and Nia found peace in the only place left to them, between the breath of the living and the stillness of the dead. Or maybe they never stopped dancing. Love is a beautiful thing, until it refuses to let go. When we hold on to what's already gone, we turn devotion into a curse, and the heart that cannot forget becomes the ghost it fears most. So if you ever walk by the river at night, and you hear laughter beneath the wind, don't look back. Because sometimes, the dead only smile when they found someone new to dance with.